Shana Tova, everyone. So, do you remember maps? I know that sounds like a very ridiculous question, but the truth is I don't remember the last time I used a paper map. The ubiquity of our Google Maps, our Apple Maps, and Waze mean we never really have to ask for directions anymore or wonder the best route to get from point A to point B. But if I think back to long road trips and visits to new cities from my young adulthood, it's the paper map that sticks out in my mind. Particularly the calisthenics of trying to refold the map. I mean, why is it so hard to put that thing back together? Now, interestingly, map folding is a problem that has stymied mathematicians for a very long time. Professor L. Mahadevan of the Applied Mathematics Department of Harvard explains, when you unfold a map, at every fold you only have one possibility, which allows you to unfold it. But when you're trying to refold the map, every fold has two possibilities. Which is why when you try to fold the map, since there are so many possibilities, unless you know exactly the sequence in which you do it and how it's arranged, you just aren't going to get it right. He says that a map like this, of 3 panels wide and 10 panels long, has over 2,000 possible ways in which to refold it. Now, lest you think that the enigma of folding a map is one which has little Jewish context, consider that one of the most beautiful depictions of God in the Talmud is as a gifted folder of maps. When Jacob, our forefather, fled his home after stealing his brother's birthright, he came to that place where he had a remarkable dream. You probably remember this. The angels going up and down the ladder, and in the dream, God stands beside him and gives him a message. God tells Jacob that the land upon which he is lying is holy, and that it will be given to his offspring. So the rabbis of the Talmud ask a very great and literal question, trying to understand these words. How is it possible that that tiny portion of land under which Jacob is sleeping would hold all of his eventual descendants? Rabbi Yitzchak says, this teaches that the Holy One, blessed be God, folded up the entirety of Eretz Yisrael and placed it underneath Jacob, our ancestor. Right under Jacob's body, all of the land of Israel. And it would be Jacob who then would unfold that map and spend his lifetime figuring out how to navigate with it. I would like to think that each one of us, like Jacob, is gifted a folded map that we use to navigate our lives. The Holy One presents it to us from the moment of our birth, and we open it up, folding it every which way to find our way forward. When we think of the map of our life, there are so many potential ways of which ways things could have folded, or as we usually say, unfolded. Some of those paths turned out to be detours or dead ends, but all of these moments have led us to this very day, to this point on which we are plotted on a map. And today, this season is the time in which we are called upon to check our bearings. And if we are not where we wish to be, we can fold that map in a different way. This is precisely the idea of tshuva. Usually defined as repentance, tshuva is more literally translated as turning. When there are behaviors in our life that are harmful to others or ourselves, when we realize our wrongdoing and decide to do differently, all we need to do is turn around. Or in map language, to fold the map another way. Now, Jacob, when he was in his moment of dreaming and waking up, receiving that map, he was trying to find his way home. Our tradition teaches that this time of year, our task is not to transform into a brand new version of ourselves, but rather to turn to ourself, our essence, owning up to and seeking forgiveness in the ways we've missed the mark, and returning home to the point of goodness that already lies inside each and every one of us. So, how do we find our way back home? That quest is such a common one, not just in Torah and on Rosh Hashanah, but in so much of literature and film. A number of years ago, the Library of Congress released data about the most frequently watched movie of all time, The Wizard of Oz. It's not surprising, considering how often it used to appear on television. But among the many, many themes in that movie, we know that it is a story of searching for home. Dorothy, of course, is knocked unconscious during that tornado and falls into a deep sleep, maybe kind of like Jacob. And while she is sleeping, she has a magnificent dream. She longs to return home, but before she can find her way back, she must journey to that land of Oz. She goes accompanied by her three companions, of course, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion. The four travelers seek to acquire the character traits that they need to be whole. Of course, the Tin Man needs his heart, the Scarecrow a brain, and the Cowardly Lion courage. But Dorothy, she needs to find her inner source of power. And it's only when she faces her deepest fears and takes that back, that which she had been projecting on others, like the Wizard of Oz and the Wicked Witch of the West, that she is able to find her way home. So where is home? Well, if we don't have a Technicolor dream or a map to help us get there, perhaps we have to go inward. On the one hand, perhaps home is asking us to go back literally to our childhood. If we are lucky, our childhood home is a place where we felt safe, warm, and loved. Finding home in that sense is trying to replicate that feeling of support. For me, going to Minneapolis will always be going home, and I know that is true not only because the places are familiar, but because it is where my family, my parents reside. It is truly a place that is familiar and safe. For some of us, the question, where is home, does not elicit a memory of the past, but is right now, the present. The home that we have created for ourselves is where we are most within our element. Home is how we choose to live our lives, in whatever setting we might find ourselves. And still for others, home is about the future. It is that place toward which we are striving. A desire for wholeness in our lives drives us to work toward a future that we sense will bring us home. On Rosh Hashanah, our homecoming is a mix of past, present, and future. It is beyond the scope of time, though. We are called home to find our authentic selves. We learn this from the very beginning of Torah. When our ancestor Abraham, who we read about yesterday, was first called by God with the phrase Lech Lecha, generally translated as go forth to a new home, many understand that to mean Lech Lecha, go into yourself. It can be interpreted to mean to go forth, to find your authentic self, to learn who you are meant to be. Our authentic self is who we are really in the essence of our being. It's not who society says you must be, nor who your mother expects you to be, nor who your boss defines you to be. Your authentic self is who you know yourself to be deep inside. There are many factors in our lives that keep us from reaching that authentic self. Some are stymied by a fear of displeasing others. When we continually say what we perceive others want to hear, we bury our authentic selves and lose a sense of our emotional integrity. Often that self is ruled by generations of habit. Perhaps all the siblings in the family were doctors, retail was the family business, or someone comes from a long line of Blue Jays fans. Looking at you, Rabbi Bregman. There is a strong emotional pull and misguided belief that we must live up to external expectations and emulate those who came before, even when deep inside we have other desires for a fulfilled life. Think about the change in perspective that was necessary to adapt the tenets of feminism. When Betty Friedan wrote The Feminine Mystique in 1963, women were largely expected to find success and identity through their husbands and children. After attending a class reunion of her Smith College class, Friedan found a general unease among her fellow alumni and decided to survey women about their lives. Here is one story she heard. "I've tried everything women are supposed to do: hobbies, gardening, pickling, canning, being social with my neighbors, joining committees, running PTA teas. I can do it all and I like it, but it doesn't leave you anything to think about, any feeling of who you are. I never had any career ambitions. All I wanted was to get married and have 4 children. I love the kids and Bob and my home. There's no problem you can even put a name to, but I'm desperate. I begin to feel I have no personality. I'm a server of food and a putter-on of pants and a bed maker. Somebody who can be called on when you want something. But who am I?" Arriving at a sense of authentic self is a hard thing to do. Psychotherapists make a living helping people try to do just that. And in many ways, approaching tshuva is a lot like engaging in an honest attempt of self-awareness. Just as psychotherapy aims at restoring a sense of psychic wholeness that was once there, but somehow was lost, tshuva involves a returning to one's true spiritual and ethical nature. According to one of the great Jewish thinkers of the 20th century, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, tshuva is an opportunity to liberate oneself from the failures of the past and demonstrate that the laws of psychological determinism need not control human destiny. Tshuva is a process, therefore, of self-renewal and self-creation that comes as a result of reflection and a powerful resolution to effect real change in your life. Now, if only we had Google Maps to tell us the most efficient way to find our way home spiritually. But I'm sorry to say, this is the way. Well, maybe not this one. We have to do the work the old-fashioned way. In practical terms, we enter into an examination of our year. We go through our calendar and remember the momentous events like births and deaths and illnesses and our everyday relationships, our doctor's appointments, and our trips to the beach. But we notice also what we've been missing. We didn't get to the mountains because we were too busy working. Our friends, we notice, with whom we have not made time to call or we have lost contact. We bring to mind our involvement in the community or perhaps lack thereof. Most of all, we reflect on where things got broken and assess our own responsibility. When we've made our list, and that takes time, we make a plan. We ask ourselves, how do we get back home? The folded map reminds us that there are so many ways in which maybe we have strayed and gone off track, but there is always another way to recenter, to refold and find our way. In his diaries, Franz Kafka, the 20th century Czech Jewish writer, reflected on the difficulty of finding our way, and yet our eternal hope. He wrote, "If we knew we were on the right road, having to leave it would mean endless despair. But we are on a road that only leads to a second one, and then a third one, and so forth. and the real highway will not be sighted for a long, long time, perhaps never. So we drift in doubt, but also in an unbelievable, beautiful diversity. Thus, the accomplishment of hopes remain an always unexpected miracle. And in compensation, the miracle remains forever possible. Let us find what calls us to live in a way that reflects the essential core of who we are. It is never too late to become acquainted with our authentic self. It is never too late to fold that map in a new direction. It is never too late to come home. Shana Tova.